Hello, everybody. This is John. I'm standing on the street. It doesn't have a corner. It's in Manderfield, Utah, where today in 1906, Philo T. Farnsworth first breathed there and to begin sharing it with the fine Utah desert and great desert basin that we consider home. And he made all of our lives better. In the next 64 years he lived until he died in 1971. And you might know him, Ron. You probably have watched TV. He's the inventor of television.
I did. I have watched TV a few times. I don't know that it made our lives better. There are some people that have left that up to debate. Marshall McLuhan, critic of television.
Media is the message.
Yeah, media is the message. He was not a big fan of it. But I do think for a lot of things it made it better, and it allowed for a lot of people to believe that Andy Griffith was real and that's how we all lived in the 50s. And
I can get with that. I had a hard time thinking Mothra was real. When it came out on TV, Mothra, you know, the Japanese movies that would play on Saturday mornings to scare little kids, Mothra and Godzilla and all those.
Oh, I didn't.
Kept us wrapped.
Yeah,
between episodes of Sky King and...
Sky King, I never liked Sky King.
It wasn't that good. Lassie was better.
Lassie was much better, and of course it's a dog story, and we all know all dogs go to heaven. But yeah, I mean, we are the television generation. We're the first real television generation, and that may say a lot about what happened to us.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to compare it to because I was born in that generation, that time, so I never was part of the print-only generation or the people screaming on the corner generation, the barbershop only, he knew all the news era. Radio era, that had all passed me. I got my grandmother's basement. She had a couple old radios that were big as a bassinet. Wow. It would, you know, I don't know why they were so big, but they just giant radio people just look at.
But
right?
they had these big tubes in them. But I think that we caught the end of the radio generation because I can remember baseball particularly. Listening to baseball on the radio was a great part of my childhood.
I'd say that the most exciting things I've listened to are actually radio announcers doing a boxing match or a football game, or when they're good.
Right. Some
of the people just say, "Oh, looky, he's running very fast."
Right.
But others add a lot of color, and it's so descriptive. You're almost there. You don't have to imagine at all.
No, as a Brewers fan, Bob Uecker just died early this year, and they're honoring throughout the year. But Uecker mainly did radio, and that's what he did for the Brewers. And people were just stunned and heartbroken when he died because he's a Milwaukee guy and beloved there. But they loved his calls on baseball. He was a great baseball play-by-play guy. And, of course, Vin Scully, who I listened to as a kid on KFI. We've mentioned that before. But there are so many other great ones. Jack Buck and Ernie Harwell in Detroit and a whole host of them that go back to
Well, you must have lived in a good spot because the radio reception wasn't that good in Bingham Canyon most places. AM, some AM.
Yeah, but in Sandy, I mean.
Oh yeah,
we caught that because of the deflection off the clouds and things I don't understand. For night games, you couldn't listen to them during the day.
And you know, and TV was markedly worse. At least on the radio, you could keep tuning the new thing back and forth.
Right.
You might hit something, but and that was even before FM. There was some AM stations that, like KSL was one that broadcast like 50,000 watt or something.
Yeah.
We'd get one in Oklahoma or somewhere.
Right.
But TV stations, I distinctly remember only being able to see two channels growing up. And
mainly KSL, Channel 5, and KUTV.
Whatever, I don't remember, but man.
Channel 4 was not, did not have a big or a strong broadcast. It was always, for a long, long time, the third station, although I believe it may have been the first television station in Utah. But they were all at Social Hall Avenue.
Yeah, over there.
And the one thing that I attribute a lot to TV was the news that came out of TV at that time. Yeah, there were only 3 channels, but the local news and the national news was, I believe, much better.
Everybody remembers like Norris Welty James.
Sure.
You know, stuff like that. You can't name them today. There's like fill-ins for those shots, and there were only 3 guys that'd be on the news.
Right.
Each station had their top 3. Mitchell was one, and Roy Gibson was another guy at the news side. I don't remember all the weathermen. Mark Eubank came in the 70s or 60s, I believe, and now his son.
They were stars in Utah, just as the same in all states or areas where you might live. I mean, the local news reporters that my brother resented. I mean, my brother is a print journalist, didn't like them, but they all were friends. But they were really superstars in Utah. I mean, James and Welty and the names don't come to me now. But if you saw them on the street, I mean, it was like seeing a rock star.
You turn ahead.
Yeah.
You turn ahead.
Yeah.
I remember, like, we'd have to go up on the hill. A lot of places had rabbit ears. They didn't do a lot of good. Most people had their antennas way up on the hill somewhere.
Right.
And they'd string wire down, 50, 60, 100 yards of wire, of antenna wire, to get, because they could get the reception up high and then bring it down. And then if in the storm you had to go up and turn it with a wrench or something, the lightning storm, oh, God, it was scary.
Yeah.
But, we had to have our TV. And when something went bust, we'd take, like you mentioned a minute ago, the vacuum tubes down to the Union drugstore and stick them in that machine, if you remember, a big old,
right.
Looked like a, God, what did it look like?
It looked like something out of a
science fiction
movie. Yeah,
and you'd put in your vacuum tube, see if it was working or not, and then buy whatever kind you want and plug it back in. If I looked inside, well, how do you look inside a TV today? It's a panel screen and
I don't.
A box sitting somewhere. Anyway, TV. See, like I said, my early image of the TV, not besides watching those Saturday shows and the spooky shows on Friday night, truly is. I remember the Kennedy and Nixon debate because everybody watched it, and how even then the power of TV was fully recognized because John Kennedy, taken both on equal stature, that they were both great men or great awful men or big awful men. You knew the power of what TV as imagery could do, because John Kennedy came across as this dapper, handsome, smart, Harvard-educated, smart guy, and Nixon was a sweater. So he sweating like sweat. He had all over his face. He had the 5 o'clock shadow going, and people judged him on that. And
it was. I mean, his presentation wasn't that good either. The thing about television is that has been written about a great deal, and that's what supposedly cost Nixon the election. I personally think that's overstated, but it is true that we develop hero worship and we develop villains even today from how someone presents on television or in movies or on YouTube or whatever. And it's a dangerous thing to do. We're told not to judge people simply on their appearance. All of us have been told that, but it is accurate in that regard. My first recollection of television was at my Uncle Marco's house, where my dad would go over and watch the Monday night or Friday night fights, I forget which one, Pabst Blue Ribbon and Gillette Blue Blades, and being told to get out in front of the television because I was a better door than I was a window.
And
many
all
times,
got up in front of the window.
But it's and watching the 56 World Series up in Bingham. But Philo T. Farnsworth is a famous guy. We talked about this a moment ago. He was the Utah representative in the Ring of Honor or whatever it was called in the United States Capitol until recently.
It's 2000. It was not very long, a few years ago. Martha Hughes Cannon.
Yeah. State senator, first elected female state senator in the United States, which is a great honoree as well. But really, when you think about what has impacted the world greater than television in the 20th century, it would be hard to come up with something, because insofar as post-World War II, television had an extreme impact and still carries some weight.
Well, it carries too much weight sometimes, but, it's when you say it broadly, it carries a lot of weight, because there's 107 channels, and I watched 2 of them, whatever's on your cable setup, and now we complain there's nothing to see or nothing to watch, and we got so much to watch.
I'm getting rid of Comcast. Those of you that are out there who have done that, I honor you, and changing my provider. But of all the channels that I have to buy, I buy the MLB package. That is my go-to daily television, and I watch Channel 3016, the Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, the Brewers.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder why.
Well, I know. I mean, what I'm saying is that I waste all those other channels.
No, we all do. I mean, we default to whatever they are, but it's such a fractured audience of TV viewers, and when we say TV's got power, it certainly does as TV, the medium, the total medium, but any individual station, much less than it used to be.
Yep.
And then you compare that to the broadband, I'm not talking about broadcast broadband, but the broadband of social networks, and they are even parsing that audience even into more fragments. So it's really no surprise we don't see eye to eye on dang near anything with anybody, because we're never on the same page. I can't think of when we are. Maybe when we are all in the same stadium, but we might be wearing different. But I don't think of a time anymore where we are.
No, I mean, one of the things is that you had 3 primary deliverers of news, and in some ways that's bad. It should be able to be controlled more. But now we have more attempts to get our news, our understanding, our knowledge from that same medium or related mediums. But there's no control over anything, in the sense that there's no requirement of truth. There's really no journalistic integrity. And that's what we relied on at that time, and everybody relied on it. And yeah, we got lied to some of the time. But overall, it was pretty truthful, and we could be proud of that. I remember in school, our American television being compared with Soviet television, and how much propaganda was on Soviet television.
Probably less than we have on American television, or at least the social ones today.
That is exactly where I was going.
The same medium that brought us Walter Cronkite taking off his glasses twice in my lifetime and changing things in my life. One in 1963, and he said, Parkland Hospital, takes his glasses off. The president is dead. He died at 1:22 in the p.m. That was a shocking moment for all Americans who were watching it, and everybody was on that page and on that station. And then towards what became the ending of the Vietnam War, he did it again and said, hey, we need to get out of Vietnam. No. Okay, now that was the power of the medium and the power of that station, the power of Walter Cronkite. I watched the fragments of a press, what do you call it these days? It wasn't even the press. There was Zelensky sitting there with Trump in the gold room, and formerly is that the Oval Office that he turned into gold? That he turned into an Egyptian palace or whatever it is?
I don't know. I assume I don't know what he's doing. I can't look at that, because the mere thought of him doing that to the White House, the house that the British set on fire and that we came back with it, the people's house, the house where people came during Andrew Jackson's administration, where Abraham Lincoln was, where Roosevelt was, where both Roosevelts were, all of these great people, whatever your politics, the Taft, William Howard Taft, and all of these people, and he wants to turn it into Trump Towers.
Well, he talked about it with great detail about why he chose this piece of framery or whatever. But in that room, in that conference, what passes for journalism today, and it just happens to be Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, who's got a job at some right-wing channel station that is not really a news station. They just have a camera and a microphone. Again, asked Zelensky about, hey, did you see that? You put a suit on today for the American people. And Zelensky looked at him cross-eyed like, yeah, but you're wearing the same suit, dummy.
No.
But anyway, my point is the difference between the reverence and the power of a Walter Cronkite and the just abject stupidity of allowing what is supposedly a journalist into that room to speak to the American people and ask the questions American people want to hear. It just isn't happening. And so that medium is rightfully trashed sometimes, many times. But I'm here to say that whenever I hear mainstream media sucks, or you can't believe journalism and this and stuff, it often comes, in my world anyway, maybe because I'm left of center in Utah for sure, I hear it from the right-wing complainers that it's all fake news and you can't trust this and can't trust that. And then I look and are you watching the same thing I'm watching? Yeah. That guy is pretty pathetic. He's not a journalist. He's only there to pitch a softball to the president. They knew that question was coming. Well, that shouldn't happen.
No, I don't.
It's not even a question. Not even relevant.
I don't disagree with you, but the fact is, and it's post-Trump, but not totally, that even the so-called liberal progressive folks that ask questions, some of them are tailored to make their point and not as a question. And I think a lot of people got sick of that. just as we've gotten sick of what goes on in so-called pressers in the White House. What they are is that they're just propaganda fests, one way or the other, and that's why people have lost their faith in it. And in a sense, we should, and that's why we need to go back to a standard of moral accountability of some sort with journalists as well. Ask a question that needs to be asked. Don't ask about what kind of suit he is wearing. Okay? If you work for TMZ, then do that, but you don't get to go into the White House.
You shouldn't be in that room. Then you do go in. There's the New York Times, and for example, that should be a revered publication. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but they ask a question today, or was it today? It was a relevant question. I don't remember it exactly, but Carolyn Levitt responded with, well, of course the New York Times would answer that question. You're the one, you must hate America kind of answer. And it's like, what a no. Well, wait. Answer the question. The guy asked a legitimate policy question. Where'd our money go, or whatever it was, and only the New York Times would.
But that's the point. The point is, that's where we've got, okay, this, when we talk about things we can hearken back to, we can't hearken back to intelligent journalism and politicians and the people that work for them that were supposed to answer the questions for the American public, because it was the people's house. It was all of America's house. It wasn't just Trump's house. It wasn't just Obama's house or whoever else. Speaking of which, today is the day that Bill Clinton was born.
Bill Clinton too?
80 plus years ago. It wasn't his house. It wasn't his house. It's our house. And what comes out of our house is truth. We're supposed to talk truth. There may be things you can't answer. Say I can't answer it. But get to it. All we're doing now is a game. It is a game as to who can get who, and that's part of the problem. And I'm sure Philo T. Farnsworth, if he were here, would say, I didn't invent it for this type of thing. I invented it for different reasons.
Yeah, the consequences of TV, and it's happened in other media. It's happened in other inventions of the world. Like, geez, I thought this was going to save society. Turned out to be the cancer cell, you know?
Yeah, we've got to honor, I mean, we can honor Farnsworth, just a kid from Beaver County. We can honor him as a very intelligent human being who didn't come from Harvard or Yale or any. He came from rural Utah and became someone who invented something that can be used. We used it to see a man land on the moon. You know, and so we should use it for that purpose. And that's why, going back to where we started, and we can get off this, is that I've got 200 channels. I go through the channels. None of them are anything I want to watch, and except I want to watch baseball. But I'm paying for all of them, and it's the only way I can get baseball.
Well, let's find something. Stupid. What else we got? Then after baseball, we got. Well, go ahead. Where were you? What was going on? How was your weekend? My
weekend was okay. How was yours? I understand that you were at a function that you and the City Weekly and your family has put on for years. You were at the Beer Fest.
Yeah, when it's not the family thing like in a class like blood family, but just where our name is on it. But anybody that ever worked for City Weekly, we've always considered family, and until maybe they're not. Yeah. But Bill's over there because he's family.
Well, Bill told me you adopted him a long time ago.
You know the story how he got in, right, to City Weekly?
No, I'm a little bit afraid to hear it, but if you feel like you can, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if we have. This is the Bill Frost Hour.
Okay, the Bill Frost
Hour. So
Hour.
Bill was writing for Slug Magazine at the time, and I knew J.R. Rupo quite well. He was our production manager, our art guy, and he was very, very instrumental to it. He was the founder of Slug, and he was instrumental in that early punk rock music scene or alt music scene, all that stuff. And Bill was writing for Slug under an assumed name, and I could never figure out who he was because I kept on saying to JR, hey, I'd like to know who this guy is. He can write for us because we have more papers out and we come out more often, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have any problem. Like, he wouldn't tell me who he was. So I went to every shitty bar in town, listened to every shitty band in town. By the way, back then, I shouldn't use that word. There were some great bands in the late 90s and early 90s and late 80s. There was some great music in this town. So anyway, finally get to meet Bill. And he had been writing under a pen name, Helen Wolf.
You stole the great blues artist's name
No, wait, I'm sorry, no, Helen Wolf. I said Helen Wolf. He was writing a pen name under Helen Wolf. And when I met Bill, and we finally, I go, where'd you get this Helen Wolf shit? And he says, well, your stupid da-da-da editor or somebody in our paper wrote a column about Howlin' Wolf used the word Helen Wolf throughout the whole thing, so he adopted the name. And that's how we found Bill. And that's not the end of it. There's many more Bill stories, but Bill, he was always the thing about Bill, he always had a beer on his desk. So he's been to a couple beer fests.
Okay, so you've avoided the question. So tell the people a little bit, because you're hesitant to do this, and the fact of the matter is that your family does participate in this, and they help, and they've always helped. So
yeah.
So when was the first beer fest?
2010. It was held in Washington Square. It was more of a craft beer festival then. There was maybe 10, if there was 11 brewers, maybe 11, but there were very, very few in there. It was the birth of the craft beer industry here. We already had Wasatch was in Park City, Squatters was on 3rd South, and around the corner came Red Rock, and they had everything for the longest time. I don't think there was one in Ogden. And then about, say, 10 years, more than 10 years, go by before somebody finally opens up their own, and I don't remember who that was. It could have been Epic. It could have been, you went to those guys, don't know exactly. But ultimately there were about 10 enough to hold a festival, and we held our first one then. And immediately after that festival, we modeled it after what traditional festivals were elsewhere. So there really wasn't a beer festival in Utah until we did one. There was Oktoberfest at Snowbird.
Right.
But it doesn't really do, you go up and hear an accordion, and it was kind of doing the German thing. It had been there for forever and a day, but nobody did the second Oktoberfest, right? There's only one accordion in Utah.
Wait a minute. So you just said they had an accordion, and they do the German thing.
Yeah,
so, okay.
Yeah. If there had been another accordion player in Utah, we'd have had 2 festivals a lot sooner, but we didn't. Okay. That model of a festival, yodelers and stuff like that. But we did our own. It was a craft beer fest with food and drink, modeled after at the time traditional beer festivals, which were, you would pay 25, 30, whatever the amount was to walk in, and then you had a cup and you just drink till you fell over. Now that's stupid, right? But that's what a beer fest was. And what happened was right after that one, like they call it like special session or something. It was damn near like that. Then the Utah legislature changed the rules, said you're never doing that again. So we thought we would never have beer festival number 2. The public out there and the people in the brewing industry wanted number 2, so we had to do a new format that grew into the format that we used for a number of years. We put up individual tents, and brewers would pour their wares across their own bar tent area to the consuming public. Okay,
so it starts out with the idea that, in a sense, you're honoring local manufacturers, or brewers, and local businesses, and they come in. But you also had another vision about it.
Well, it's charitable. That's part of it.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that. Just don't bury that. Talk a little bit about what charities you've donated to over the years.
Well, one of our first partners was Local First.
Okay.
Then the big animal sanctuary down in Kanab was for several years.
Okay.
Then the local Humane Society of Utah. We did all of those over the course of time. Other ones that came, American Cancer Society for a couple of years. We did lung and or kidney for a couple of years. This year was suicide prevention. So in those years, between contributed cash donations, probably totaling 6 figures, 100,000 plus or whatever, and in kind, we did what we could do for all of those communities. And this year, I had a lot of people come up on Saturday and Sunday and say they were really happy that we had chosen suicide prevention because it's top of mind right now for a lot of those like veterans returning or people finding themselves out of work and the pain that a lot of people are going through.
Yeah, and with young people too. Suicide is a major problem in America and the world regarding younger people too, and also people that have mental illness and some people that have addiction problems. And as you say, our veterans that we're supposed to take care of. They go and fight for us. They go other places for America and our allies, and they come home, and a lot of times as much money as both parties claim that they're giving to veterans, they're not giving enough to them. And we've got a decent VA system, but it could be better. A lot of people complain about it, and there are also a lot of people who swear by it. We support homeless vets and veterans for the run that we do for my brother and Jerry Ennis and Jeff Jensen, but it's an important thing, and suicide prevention is a big part of that. We live in a world today where people feel desolation a lot, and it's something that we've got to do, and so you should be honored for doing that, and the people that came up to you have some sense that is a problem.
Yeah, well, and we'll do what we can do. I don't know. We had one of our most, in ways, a very successful festival this year, in other ways, demonstrably, like, not so successful. Probably a product of its success and some failures everywhere around. And on our side, that miscommunications primarily, which we would wear and fix up. But many thousands of people showed up again and enjoyed what we did, particularly on Sunday, 2 days ago, and Saturday afternoon. We got hit really hard on Saturday, and
meaning that a lot of people showed up.
Well, it's a 7 and 8 hour fest, depending what type of tick you buy. So, but 80% of the pre-sales showed up within the first 2 hours.
Really?
Less than 2 hours. I mean, it was like, what is going on?
Well,
immediately clogged up. It immediately clogged up the system that was set up that was new this year. Will have to be reevaluated. I'll be honest with you. The whole festival, for us to be involved in, has to be reevaluated. And I mean, we have to say, do we really want to do this? We've worn our stripes with the, moving the needle, making things better in Utah community. Whether a lot of it in hospitality. But not just the hospitality.
That's a big part of what City Weekly has done historically, going back to the beginning with the private eye.
Yeah, well, many Utahns are aware of that, and then there's a whole generation of people who are not. So they look at us as one of those other slices of bad media or something out there that can't get their shit together. And it's still fair, but it makes us kind of wonder if, what is our mission call now? And isn't it time for maybe some of these people that are hearkening us to, learn how to do things right, maybe they should step up and do it,
Well, I'm glad that we did this. When I told you I wanted to do this today, I wanted to talk about it. And, I mean, you asked me what I did on Saturday and Sunday, and I didn't come down.
No, but Jillian did.
My granddaughter...
Our only Bingham Boys guest was there.
No, that's Gabrielle. She's in New Mexico, but it's her first cousin, so she can ride that. They're friendly and love one another.
Okay.
But my stepson Matthew and his wife Tony were there, and Jillian brought a crew with her as well, so they kind of covered for me. But I was still so stunned by what happened in Alaska that I couldn't feel the team. But before we get there, so that's my excuse for not coming. But the reality is, and people that have been involved in these kind of things, I put on a lot of stuff like this, not to this magnitude. There's always people who complain. My example of it is, we've done that 5K for my brother. Last year was the 40th year. We've done it forever. We've given money to any number of groups, but we've kind of focused on homeless vets and the Veterans Court in the 3rd District, because it really helps individuals, and we have some input in it, not to the degree that you have done. But even in the limited that thing that we do on first Saturday of December every year, rain, snow, or sleet, we have people that have complaints all the time. And what I learned over a period of time is that that's going to happen, and we try to placate them. Some people will not be placated, and my example is this. I'm not good at numbers, and so when after Kennecott closed off the original route up the mountain from Copperton Park, we had to find a way where they stopped it, turn around and come back.
And add on some distance.
And add on some distance. And I thought I did a hell of a good job with my odometer on my car. But we found out that this 5K, and a lot of people come and run it. I mean, the prizes aren't that great. It's done, again, for charity. But people, their time, and all of that is so important. I used to run. I run a marathon, and I've run mini marathons in 5Ks and 10Ks. But I was 4/10 of a kilometer off. So it was 4.6, okay?
Instead of 5.
Instead of 5. And so people would come after and go, we're at this high elevation.
I broke this record.
I broke my record and this. But a guy came up and said the year that I had to advise everybody that we had been running short for a long time, he'd run every year, but he was so pissed at me because he had lost a couple. This guy was a good runner, and he had finished second, and his claim to me, he wanted something in return, was that if he'd have known it was only 4.6
he'd have gassed it sooner.
He would have gassed it and caught the people. He said, I could have caught him every time if I'd have known that. So what are you going to do about it? I go,
give him a cupcake from the Methodist Church.
I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do about that, except I can give you some advice. You're going to have to work harder in those last 5.
You never know.
But I mean, so people are that way.
It's like when you buy a ticket to a concert, a game, or a beer fest. Doesn't matter. You get the right to.
You get the right to complain.
It just comes with it, and we have to take it. Anything that is less than pleasant to read or hear, take it seriously, and see what we can do and build, if we choose to build.
People that don't put their neck out. And this is true. People that really don't put their neck out to do something, a lot of people don't realize how much of that happens and how really hurtful it is when you're trying so hard. Because we live in a day and age more than ever before, and a lot of it has to do with the guy that we talk about a lot here.
He's made obnoxious behavior passé.
It's okay to start calling names and threatening because you didn't get exactly what you want. And again, that's a change in American society that we've all got to think through. And we should all think through, it's hard to do these things. It's hard to be a cop. It's hard to be a lawyer. It is hard to be a journalist. We've been complaining about that. It's hard to be a garbage man. It's hard to do all this stuff. And so if your initial response is to jump somebody's behind, you might want to rethink it and think what they've gone through to do it and what their purpose in doing it was.
Yeah, I don't want to litigate all that right now because it's just not all just on me. I don't have all the information, and I don't know all the stuff that's happened. And not just here, but in all behaviors, get away from the negativity on social media. I've got a few things I'll look at, but I don't scroll and try to find something really horrendous on Trump or anybody else. I don't care about the comments. They're all the same after a while, aren't they?
No,
they kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
I am pissed, way pissed, a lot pissed at X, and you don't know squat, something else, something about what you're doing. I could have done it better in my sleep. These things are just on every post doesn't matter what it is, from crackers to cannons. People just complain, and it's old.
X savages Y. Those things I don't look at much social media anyway, but when that comes up, when I'm going through news feeds that I look at, when I see that, I kick it because that's an opinion. I don't want to see their opinion. But anyway, good job on the beer fest. And what's your favorite? See, I'm not a craft beer drinker.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I really am not. My go-to is a red beer with a light beer. So tomato juice and a light beer is my go-to thing if I'm at a bar.
Well, I'll drink generically. I'll drink like a light pilsner or amber, not a pilsner or a beer like that when I go fishing or camping, and have that substitute for coffee with spicy V8. It's just, to me, it's a better wake up than coffee. That's without saying a brand, but my favorite beer, if I had one, of the crafts, I don't really have one because I know these guys, and I can name a favorite beer in every one of them. But I will do this, and then
is he avoiding the question?
No, it is hard because I know these guys, but I can give this one because it relates to you as well. You remember the Fisher beer brand?
Well, sure I do. I've been to the...
Okay, well, Colby Fraser, one of the owners of Fisher Brewing, was an employee of ours for years. He was an investigative journalist. He won Utah's Best Reporter, along with two other of our, Eric Peterson and Stephen Dark. In that tenure, we really did a lot of good stuff. But anyway, one day Colby says, well, hey, John, I'm going to be moving on, And he had kind of and where are you going? He said, I'm going to be a brewer. And I go, what? And he never had spoken in all that time about beer ever, not once. And he did actually have some winery kind of experience from Southern California, I think from his wife's side in Santa Barbara. But anyway, he became the brewer over at Fisher. So right away, cheering on Colby and his success, we became fans of Colby. And he's got a great line. If you drink Fisher beer there, if you have, it tastes like the beer you stole out of your dad's fridge in
I didn't
when you're
steal
old
beer
enough.
from my dad's fridge.
You left a quarter, bullshit.
No, I didn't. I never did. We stole beer from Nick and Sam's Food Town.
But not from your dad's
Not
fridge?
from my dad's fridge, no.
Okay.
And I didn't even steal from there. It was my buddy Boats who did it.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about. It replicates as far as everybody's ever had it that remembered the original Fisher, because they're using the recipes. There's a connection, familial connection to the old Fisher family, use of the logos, the name, and all that kind of stuff. So they recaptured the beer without a brewer of the time, passing. It's sort of like you take DNA from a toad and turn it into a woolly mammoth or something. They revisited the origins of Fisher beer and they recreate it. So that's a really fine beer, and he's got a Mexican lager that I like too.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, so he kind of answered the question. Bill's shaking his head, but I think we got you there.
Well,
and that's it. I mean, the point is this, ultimately, is these are crafts people who are doing good things with beer. And if in 1972, when I was in law school, you told me that there was going to be a beer festival in downtown Salt Lake, I would have laughed.
Well, you're right.
Because that is the growth that we've had in Utah.
Yeah.
And it's just beer, folks. I mean, that's what it is. And for those people who are afraid of it, I think one of the things you alluded to was the Utah Liquor Commission is on top of all of this stuff, and they make people toe the line. And there are people there at this fest and so many others to drive people that aren't drinking. And there are wristbands and other identifiers of those people that are designated drivers. They can't be seen with the beer, and the people that put these things on make sure of that as well, as do the brewers. And so it's the people that make the beer. And
well, they have the threat over you at all times, and I don't want to point just to DABS. It's come a long ways from the old days of DABS, the really compliance officers back there that were charged. They were good guys, some of them, but some of them, and they close you over or give you a citation for the most minimalist of things. But here's the deal. It was spoken to me this way. A guy that went in the bar business, he was visited on his first day by an agent, if you will, the DABC or somewhere, and said, your job is to make it so that I don't have to do my job. And he kind of goes, yeah, I kind of get it. What do you mean? He says, I don't want to have any problems here. And which is to say to the guy, he says, I could close any bar in town, cite any bar in town at a moment's cause or second over anything. And they would get citationed on advertising violations if the print size of a newsletter or something was too large, leaving the word member out of an ad or mentioning the word beer or whatever. And they would get closed after three of them. You could get a closure or a fine. Right. And so you probably defended some of them.
No, I defended a lot of bars. I did a lot of work in front of DABC.
So with people that have been around for a while, in media especially, we have the scars from that because the effect that it has, not just on the liquor or beer industry, now wine and ciders, not just the hospitality part, but on what they support, all the causes they support, and they are very generous. Many of these are very generous donors to lots of things, and very many of them are also very good supporters of the free press, because we went to bat for them early on, and we continue to go to bat for them. So when we are threatened, and it happened last year, just to tell you what, I'm not trying to hide it, and it is news, but it's not broadcast news. The festival got hit with pretty close to a $35,000 fine last year. And you kind of go, well, that'll kill us. So my son Pete fought back, and they've got it reduced substantially. But as the license holder, he was responsible for the behaviors of everybody there, and some of them were just absolute ticky-tack stuff, like, here, hold my beer when I go to the restroom, and somebody now has 2 containers in their hands. That's a violation.
Yeah. Can
you believe it? Is that a $35,000 fine? And so there were others, and I'm not going to get into the weeds about it, what is egregious or not, but they were out of the realm of what Pete could do about it then, but he had to go through the consequences. And the consequence would be, if this happened, it closes the beer fest for us for now and never. Other ones are going to have to change their behaviors for sure. And it also could have put to the ground and put out of business, believe it or not, City Weekly, because it's just not that company that it was 15, 20 years ago. So anytime that the enforcement people come after us, that's one thing. It can hit us once a year. But they do it year-round to everybody else, and they have been known to cite revenge for something that would be spoken over the radio or printed or whatever over the passage of time, and because they can.
Well, I'll be
piss somebody off, and then boom, here somebody comes in and hits you with a citation.
I represented bars in Salt Lake City, Midvale, Ogden, and other places. Earl did too. Earl represented some bars, but we did it for my whole career. So I'll be a little bit more blunt. The DABC is the most chicken shit organization in the state of Utah relative to minor violations accumulating into something where they'll shut bars down, where if even non-drinkers looked at them, they would go, these are your regulations, and this is what you're doing.
You get a citation for a bottle marked wrong.
Well, and so my point is this. We can go into all of the things that they have done over the years. A lot of them have nothing to do with prohibiting people over drinking, because they do have those rules, or serving drunk people. They literally are bars that make every effort to make certain that the people that are in there, that it's correct and they should be in there and they're of age and so on and so forth. But they do a lot of bad things, and in representing them over the years, they tightened it up and they increased their penalties all the time, because that bureaucracy, and remember, Republicans are against bureaucracy. They've been talking about that since Reagan, and they've sold it. That became one of the biggest bureaucracies in the state of Utah, and their rules and regulations were the most draconian and difficult to deal with, and there was no real appeal from them.
Well, like I said at the onset, the rules changed after our very first one, and they continued to be minor changes here and there. But here's the thing about last year that just gripes me to no end. There were agents in there, and this wasn't the ABS. This was not them. We had done a story about this agency before, so I can't really correlate for sure if that because they were pissed at us and came. I don't know. There's no proof of it, but there's a strong suspicion, because in 14 years of that festival, we bought fencing and security. You think we made donations to charity? If we had half the money back that we made from fencing and security, we'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars to suicide prevention and all the rest of them. We've done the City Weekly, the people that ran it, the festival, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to make sure that if Utah is telling us the truth, that they care about overconsumption, they care about minors not drinking, et cetera, et cetera. We took every preventive measure, and in those 14 years, not a single notice, a whit, a comma, period of a violation ever. Then last year, it was from here to Jesus long. It was longer than a Greek last name. That's how many citations happened. We're not passing this off as like, oh, you can't do business in Utah, the state. We're not whining that, but it is. At the same time, it caused a whole bunch of things to chain, because it sent signals to us. You know what the word, your brother knew it, and you know what it means to have the chilling effect.
Of course.
On a journalist. And it worked to that end, because if City Weekly had told the story that when we wanted to tell it, how to tell it, it may have exposed innocent people to the vision of somebody with a badge on that would walk in and cite them for something that they didn't see coming, that had no reason to worry about the day before, and puts people out of work. Well, I mean, that's how they operate.
Well, it's always been that way. I was one of the owners of the Dead Goat Saloon, and people bend over backwards to do everything at that time DABC wanted to do. And there are good people that work at DABC, and there are good people that are commissioners, and there are some people that just don't get it and want to show their so-called street cred with their crowd that they're cracking down on drinking in Utah. It's not changed. At times it's gotten better, and at times it's gone back. But the problem is that there is no sense of understanding. If we had any bar owner in the state of Utah, whatever city they are in, they could come in and tell horror stories about how people who want to sell a drink or run a restaurant have been through, and the multiple changes that have gone on over the years, and that are sometimes written in language that people don't understand.
It's never enough. We make the changes, they make the changes, they still come in and they find something ticky-tack and keep you on edge so you can't sleep. It's like agonizing. Why are we doing this? Why did we do this? Love all those people in pain. We can't help everybody any longer because it's too painful.
I understand that, and I want the listeners, those of you out there, to understand that it's not just this way in Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in a lot of places, and I mean, it gets to the point where it becomes obvious sometimes. So, believe me, I'm not a young-looking 75. I look every bit of my age. When I go to Harmon's and buy a beer or buy what I drink, that from there I drink the pressed drinks, whatever they are. I guess they're whatever. I have to bring out my driver's license. They have to see my driver's license. And we get to points of absurdity with the law. And as a lawyer, that was one of the things that used to really irritate me the most. So because you can do something under the law doesn't mean you have to do it. You have to use common sense. The problem that everybody has with DABC or the Liquor Commission in Utah is the concept of common sense goes out the door the minute anybody walks in those doors over on 4th West.
Well,
and really, let me speak for you here.
No.
All right,
Go ahead.
Because I can get in trouble, and then you don't have to worry about it. The sensitivity that they have for what people are doing, and the hospitality industry in Utah stops as soon as they put that badge on, or they become a commissioner, or they work for that organization. And you can talk to the same people that are giving people tickets or giving them citations for the Liquor Commission, that off the record they'll tell you, we hate to do this, but we got to have our job.
Well,
and so that's the problem. And not to wrap it up there, but that's really the point. And the point is they make it hard for people to do good things.
Right. Well, I'm going to just come back a little bit on that. My experience with the DABC was always borderline contentious, but I had some great friends over there, and I had great respect for a whole bunch of their people there. I really did. And particularly in some in compliance, but there was always somebody there that tried to, like a private in the Army wants to get to be corporal, he just does things he shouldn't do or didn't care. And that was not so well. But the word also is enforcement. There's a new gendarme out there that's just cracking down on bars all over town, and we talk to these people. They're fearful. Now, if it would be one thing if everybody was just being egregious about it, but these people are spending time, money, and resources on protecting Utah citizens, only to have this happen, because this happened last year at the festival. When I said when he showed me the list of all of these fees, all of these, somebody did this at there, whatever the violations were, there was a long strew of them. I said, when did they tell you about it? They said, I got an email in the middle of the night or something like that. Or he was notified from security that got an email late. I said, you mean they didn't tell security? No, they didn't. In other words, they were watching these violations occur. These people who are entrusted by our government.
Right.
Hello, Governor Cox. Hello, Stuart Adams. Hello, legislature. Entrusted by all of those people to protect the citizens. Didn't.
No,
they let those violations continue so that they would stack up, so they could jam it up to the Utah Beer Festival, and they did that for hours.
They do.
This is just so egregious abuse of that position, particularly when they don't even fart a recognition of what the Beer Fest had been doing to protect the citizens because it was responsible, but their own security and enforcement was not.
Well, but that's how it works with this. That's what I'm saying. If you talk to lawyers and you talk to bar owners, lawyers that represent, a great lawyer, George Dementi, represented a lot of bars. We used to talk about this all the time. You know, if they see something happen, they don't say, I've got to give you a citation because this guy right over here came in and your people didn't check him. No, they'll wait for 4 of them to happen, then they stack it up, and you ask the agent when you're having your hearing, well, why didn't you tell them? Why didn't you tell them that? Well, because what?
If I'm driving through the hometown of Philo Farnsworth at 85 miles an hour in Beaver, I'm going to get a ticket before I see the other side of Beaver, and that's not a very big town. What happens in what you've just described in the Beer Fest is they keep on saying, well, you drove 85 from Manderfield or whatever the damn town is, to Beaver, and then to Parowan, and then to Cedar City, and then to St. George. So you have 100 tickets.
No, it's
like this is stop it at the root, and it's one thing, but they don't.
Well, stop it at the root if it's really a problem. So what you're saying is there's no public safety concern here.
It's zero. It's an extortion company. It's an extortion outfit.
It's just a gotcha. And
it's more than gotcha when they do it like that.
I understand that, but that is the point. And so we beat this to death. We were going to talk about this for 3 minutes, and we talked for how long? We talked for 46 minutes, but that's okay because it gives people maybe a little bit of insight about why in Utah, but in other places as well, when you don't know what you do. So you sneak in with the phony ID. The people that look at that ID and are going to serve you, if the cops meet you outside the bar and say, what's your real name and how old are you? You're not going to get much. You're going to get a ticket and it will be pled down and you'll have to pay a fine. But the people that are running the bar, they're going to add that up against them, and once they add them all up, it can put them out of business.
And by the way, I know I can count on all my fingers and toes great people who were in the club business in the 1980s that didn't make it through the 90s because of what you just said. It put them out of business. Yeah,
I wish George was alive. George would tell stories about stuff that happened. He did a lot of bars up in Ogden. I did bars in Ogden too for a long time, but he did it forever.
Well, and it's our core.
And what's really amazing is he could tell some really real horror stories about it. I have my own, but he did so much of that type of work. And a great guy, George Dementi, God rest his soul. A Greek guy, by the way.
Yes, I know.
All right. So anyway, I think we have one last thing to say because we're about at that time and we've rambled, and that is the reason I couldn't get to the
you were watching
Beer Fest.
You were watching the presser from Alaska.
Yeah, I was worried, literally worried, that Donald Trump was going to cede Alaska back to Vladimir Putin when he rolled out the red carpet for him. And that left me stunned in front of my TV.
Warren, you underestimate the man. He's not going to stop at Alaska. He's going to include the Gadsden Purchase, Louisiana Purchase, everything west of Mississippi, all the blue states. He's on team flatter me Trump. No. That's all he gives a shit about. No. You know that. We keep saying it, and Americans keep falling for it. I mean, the whole world saw, here's what the whole world saw in the past few days and in Alaska. They saw U.S. soldiers at the foot of Putin's plane on their hands and knees rolling out carpet to him to walk on. Yeah. I was talking to a guy it happens to be a club I used to love a lot, Port of Call. He was a Vietnam veteran. And he was telling me one day, he goes, it was something like mystic or Hindu thoughtfulness that he turned into, like the thought about how he dealt with it. And he goes, the rocket-propelled grenade that killed my best friend was manufactured in a mine in Katusk by some guy just trying to make a living.
Right.
And somebody took the metal from there and manufactured it into something of a cylindrical shape, and they brought the gunpowder in from the guy who invented China. He's telling this whole litany of things I don't remember in sequence. And isn't that fate that some man in Russia 20 years ago dug with his shovel some ore that came out of the ground and killed my best friend in Vietnam? Yeah. And you kind of go like, there was, they weren't on Team USA during that era. They were selling the weapon then, and in my entire lifetime it's been this. How we can somehow condone that Trump and Putin, because they're best buddies, or he wants to be that's the headline today. I want him to be my best friend. It's like, this is just flat out wrong. This is wrong. Forget about the politics of who's on the right side in Ukraine, and forget about that for just a moment. Leave the children that fucking dying right now on the table, because they are for a vanity parade. But it's being spun entirely different here.
Well, the thing...
There's such a broad, like, what a handshake he gave Putin on the red carpet. Like, what? Or, he couldn't identify the premier of Finland yesterday sitting right across from him at the table. Man alive.
Mitt Romney ran for president in the Republican Party when he was running, said the greatest enemy America has is Russia. You were born a year after Joseph Stalin died. That was in my lifetime. Then we got Khrushchev, who the West opposed because of what they did, not only at the end of World War II, but what they were doing during the 50s. And Khrushchev was so pissed off, he took his shoe off and beat it on the table at the UN. Ronald Reagan told Gorbachev, tear that wall down, Mr. Gorbachev. And then there was a coup in Russia, and we had a period of detente. Vladimir Putin is an old Soviet red. He doesn't care about friendship with Donald Trump. Donald Trump whispered to one of the people there, he's going to do this, believe me, because he wants to do something for me. He doesn't want to do anything for Trump. He didn't want to do anything for Finland and people like him after World War II, or Latvia, Lithuania.
Yeah, Lithuania.
Or
Crimea, everything that's going on in Ukraine.
Or the other Baltic state that was given to Russia. And so the idea for people, at least I think of my generation, that all of a sudden Mother Russia is our best friends is hokum, and Donald Trump is selling that to people who are buying it. Well, I'll tell you what, don't buy it. Vladimir Putin doesn't care about Donald Trump or America, except insofar as he can use us.
They know how to flatter Trump. Every world leader does it. They're doing the Putin thing now and flattering him to no end.
And it doesn't matter because he doesn't care.
Well, Trump thinks that Putin will make a deal because of Donald.
You know what?
And he's not even talking about making a deal for the Ukrainian children, or for justice, or for peace, or for honoring the 1994 Accords, when Ukraine, disarmed at the behest of Bill Clinton, took their nuclear weapons away under the pretext that we would take care of them.
And we didn't. And that's the thing, is that we can't lie about this stuff. This isn't lying about...
plain and simple, Putin's a bad guy, right?
Plain and simple, he's a bad guy, but plain and simple, all of his interests are contrary to ours. And people have to understand that in America. Go back and read the history is the long point I'm trying to make. This isn't something that changed because Donald Trump and Putin are friends. Putin is worse than a bad guy. He's a killer. He sent people to kill his enemies in other countries and will do it again. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care that Donald Trump laid a red carpet out for him. When he got in his plane to go home, they were laughing at our president. They were
pounding vodkas. So, well, let's get out of here. You got riled a little bit. Just save it for next time, and just here's what people are starting to rile a little bit about. Not a lot. Two things, and just think about them. They'll be off the table by next week. So let's just cut this. But Gavin Newsom's learned how to get under his skin, and that's one thing. And the other one is conspiratorial theorists about the assassination are starting to find all kinds of crazy videos or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to believe it myself. But when you got to saying like Putin doesn't care, I don't think he's the only person in the world that doesn't care, and that isn't even saying that it was anything to do with Trump. But people don't care. Who's ever pulling those triggers don't care. No. They pulled our trigger today, and he got both of us in the way.
They didn't get me.
Didn't get you.
No. They didn't get you either.
You didn't shake the beer. I did. Okay?
That's it. And God bless everybody. Peace and love.